Here's what I want you to do. I want you to immediately go out and make a mistake. Now, I know this is something you probably don't want to do, and you don't even have to try, and I'll bet that you're going to make at least one mistake today. So now, answer this question. How much did making that mistake hurt? It might surprise you to find out your mistake wasn't nearly as painful as you expected. So here's a dirty little secret you need to know. No one likes to make mistakes. Well, I guess that's not a dirty little secret, but the truth is no one likes to make mistakes. That means both you and I don't want to make mistakes, and this also means we have a problem. If the only way we really learn is by making mistakes, shouldn't we celebrate them instead of pretending it didn't happen in the first place? If you're ever going to build a business that's personally sustainable, you need to have mistakes work as positives and not negatives. I know this is something that goes against your grain. After all, you, like everybody else, have been taught that mistakes are bad. But are they really bad? So here's a question for you. Are you ready to let your team make mistakes? And this is where the rubber meets the road. I know you know how to handle the mistakes you make. And if you're honest with yourself, you make mistakes, you learn from them, and then you move on. So the question is, do you do the same with your staff? If the answer is the same as for many of us, the answer is no, and that's just too bad. When I was in my early days of owning a business, I would bully and demean anyone who made a mistake. You can imagine what this did for the morale of my company, and you can really imagine what it did for the service we provided our customers. The people working with us would hide mistakes and pretend they never happened. This was something that was horrible, and it's something you don't need to have happen in your company. You just have to realize we all make mistakes. One of my favorite sayings is from Brené Brown, and her saying is, we're all doing the best we can. If you use this mantra around mistakes that your team members make, life will be better for you, and it'll be a whole lot better for them. I'm hoping now you realize mistakes are just part of life. The question then becomes, what do we do when we make mistakes that happen in our company and they're made by other team members? For me, the answer is simple. I just need to ask a very simple question. What did you learn? It's only 4 words, and it's a very, very powerful 4 words. So here's the challenge with those 4 simple words. When we ask, it's often hard to get a straight answer. In fact, when I started asking this question, I never got a straight answer. I only heard the answers my team members thought I wanted to hear. And the reason for this was really simple. If I was going to yell and demean people when they made mistakes, they never wanted to admit it. In fact, they went out of their way to hide the mistakes and make sure I never found them. But after a period of time when we started using mistakes as learning opportunities, things started to change. And when it did, I started to use this methodology to help people understand that the mistake they made wasn't death-defying, and they might even learn something from it. So here's a process I went through with this. I started off asking the question straight up. And when I didn't get an answer or a shoulder shrug, I would go on to step 2. So here's the second question I would ask. If you knew what it was you would have learned, what would that be? This helps your team member imagine what their answer might be. Their imagined answer is usually the correct one, and more often than not, this question doesn't work either, and you're going to get another shoulder shrug. This is especially true when you start using mistakes as learning opportunities. So when you get the shoulder shrug, we then move on to option 3. And this is the one that almost always works. And the question I would ask here, or what the statement I would make is, I want you to pretend that you know what to do. So tell me as you're pretending, what would you do about fixing this particular thing? This almost always gets me an answer I can work with. And the reason is, when you're pretending, It's not something that you can get in trouble for, and you can have a little bit of fun with it. And the truth is, the quality you hear will surprise you with the answer to this question, and it's usually what they've been thinking in the first place. So starting what I call a culture of mistakes is really hard. No one wants to admit they make mistakes. We've been taught our entire life that mistakes are bad. In school, making a mistake was bad. Growing up in your family, many mistakes got us yelled at. And even in sports, when we made a mistake, what did the coach do? They yelled at us. We learned mistakes were bad, and now it's time to unlearn that mistakes are bad. In fact, mistakes, instead of being bad or something you don't want to have, are learning opportunities. I know that over my life, the only time I've really learned something is when I did it incorrectly. Getting others to admit they've made mistakes is a challenge. Most of our team members who make mistakes are sure, at the very least, they will be yelled at, if not fired. It takes time for this belief to change. For me, it took years and years and years. So this means that when someone admits a mistake, you can't yell at your team members like I used to. Now, if you build a culture of trust in your company, learning from mistakes will be easier. When you trust somebody, you don't believe you're going to get in trouble if you do something wrong. You'll get a chance to have an opportunity to have a conversation. If your team knows they won't be yelled at or fired, it's easier to come forward and alert you to mistakes. This will allow your company to improve at a faster rate. There's a book by Stephen Covey called Business at the Speed of Trust. The more trust you have in your business, the faster you move and the better things work. I would love to have a conversation with you about why having a culture of mistakes is so important. So feel free contacting me at jpatrick@stage2planning.com to set up a time to talk. In the meantime, if you're not ready to talk, download our free periodic table of business elements. This will show you 39 different strategies you can use in your company to make your company personally and economically sustainable. And while you're at it, scroll down and let me know what you think about using mistakes as a positive in your company. Hey, this is Josh Patrick. You're at The Sustainable Business. Thanks a lot for stopping by. I hope to see you back here really soon.